Zach LaVine. Why don't we talk a little
Indeed.
bit about him? He's a guy that obviously John covered back in the day, and the Bulls lose last night to the Magic. What are they now? Sam, you usually got the standings up like 4-8 or something like that.
4-8. That's
I
right.
get
Four
Yep.
and
that.
eight.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. I mean, he's the new name out there. I don't know how appealing. I don't know how great a package he's going to get. I believe he still has 3 years and like at over 40 per. I believe the last year of his deal is like 48 million. So it's a tough contract to trade. It's a tough contract for teams out there to absorb. But it's the name that's been floating out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, watching Zach's put up plenty of good numbers when he's been in Chicago. He's been in an All-Star game. He's scoring plenty. I think he had 51 earlier this year, right? And they lost that game. It's just been a matter of, can this group with that kind of production, is he the kind of guy that impacts winning in a way? And it hasn't happened yet. I mean, he and Vooch and DeMar DeRozan, like, that group has a ton of offensive talent, but everything that you hear coming out of Chicago is it's just not working. Like, and Zach was I think public this week saying now is not the time to talk about whether he wants to be there or not. When a player says now is not the time to talk about it, that means now is the time, and that he doesn't want to be here. And it sure seems like that group, it feels like, has been ripe for some sort of significant change the last couple of years, and they just have stuck with it, and now their kind of backs are against the wall.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Our Darnell Mayberry, who covers the Bulls so well, had asked Zach essentially about, is it a distraction? I believe was some form of that question. And Zach said, Darnell, like, I've had this for 3 years, man. Like,
Yep.
so there was a fatigue that came with that. He's not wrong. He's been in the rumors for a long time. And a lot of it is that, these Bulls, when they jumped on the scene and got Alex Caruso and had Lonzo Ball and Arturas Karnisovas had taken over the front office, they had a short little spell when it seemed like they actually put a roster together that was going to contend in the East, but nobody has believed that for quite some time. And it feels like there's a fait accompli component here that Zach obviously now is eventually going to be on the move. My other big takeaway with Zach, guys, and you know this really well, is this time of year, there's always a Zach LaVine, meaning a high profile player whose name hits the market in a substantive kind of way, and then teaches you and shows you and reveals where a bunch of different teams are at. Because regardless of where Zach goes, when you talk to people around the league and you start hearing the same team names attached potentially to Zach right away, for even for my purposes, the way I like covering the league, I care less about where Zach ultimately lands than I do finding it fascinating that, and I'm going to read a list here because I made some notes the other day, when you are hearing consistently Lakers, Heat, Knicks, Hawks, Philly. The takeaway there is that these are squads that, like, if you want Zach LaVine, you've got to give up quite a bit to get him. And so as far as how those teams see themselves, you now have learned that they have greater aspirations. They're going to be aggressive when the trade deadline comes around in February. To unpack some of those specific teams, on the Philly side, they've been tied to LaVine for a long time. That was where my mind certainly went first when I saw Shams put out the Zach story. As of now, anyway, my understanding in Philly, because we know that post James Harden trade, they are very well positioned to go get another really good player. And that had been their plan. Daryl Morey's plan was to put another all-star level player around Joel Embiid. For now, disclaimer, this could change. I don't get the sense that they are by any means going all in for Zach LaVine. And I think the Tyrese Maxey ascension is playing a part here, because Zach, being conceivably a one-way player, they're getting scoring out of Tyrese. He just had a 50 piece the other day. And I think their interest would be more on a two-way player, preferably before the deadline, but who knows, maybe this summer. So Philly, certainly inquiring, I think, but not at the top of that list. The Heat, we know their off season and how much talent they let get out the door. So not a surprise that they are going after Zach. The Knicks, a good team. We talk to our Fred Katz about it all the time, where, the Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson approach has gotten them so far, but a lot of people think
on the Knicks front, doesn't it seem like the Donovan Mitchell domino matters more to them? It's almost like save yourself for that.
Yes. It does, but they're there's a gray area there, Slater. I think they know. For one, I think they have a bit of a split room. They have an interesting front office now.
A lot of voices, right?
A lot of voices. Leon Rose, Gerson Rosas, Frank Zanin.
Another of John's old friends. Right?
That's right.
Yes. I mean, John and I talked about it, I think, during your trip out west, John, that, Cat has been tied to the Knicks for years, but even more so with Gerson now in New York. So I think they're, they look at everything. I don't know exactly where they're at on Zach. But,
the Lakers, it just seems like a D'Angelo Russell, like, upgrade, right? I mean, that
100%.
Right.
100%.
Yeah. And what I want to see is, like, I wonder what the package is for Zach LaVine. Like, he's a good player. He is an explosive scorer, but is he the kind of guy who, I mean, I know by virtue you have to get to a certain financial, a money level to make salaries work and match and do it that way. But I wonder if he's at the point in his career and where the Bulls are right now that they can fetch a huge return for him.
I think the answer to that is no.
Right.
Mostly because his contract. It's just,
yeah.
In this second apron world,
he's been dealing with a knee issue for a little while. Like, yeah. So
I would predict that it's gonna go up. I mean, I would be surprised if any kind of deal went down anytime soon.